Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and in today's video we will be talking about the 2015 and 2016 Ford Super Duty pickup trucks. As with basically everybody's 3/4 ton or 1 ton pickup trucks, the Super Duty is very, very large. There are 3 different cabs and 2 different bed lengths to choose from, and you can get single rear wheel or dual rear wheel options. Now the F250 is single rear wheel only. The F350, like we're taking a look at here, can be either single rear wheel or dual rear wheel, and the F450 is dual rear wheel only. Now there are 2 different engines under this hood. Things start out with a 6.2 liter gasoline V8 engine producing 385 horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque. You'll find that engine in the F250 and the F350 starting. Then we have this particular engine, which is the optional V8 diesel engine. It's a 6.7 liter engine producing 440 horsepower and a whopping 860 pound-feet of torque at an incredibly low 1600 RPM. Now this engine is optional in the 250 and 350 and standard in the 450. Let's talk towing and payload, because this is where comparisons get a little bit tricky, and it's important to keep in mind that pickup trucks continue becoming more and more capable year after year. Now there once was a time where a half-ton pickup truck held about 1,000 pounds in the bed, and a 1-ton pickup truck could handle about 2,000 pounds in the bed. But those days are long gone. This F350 is still in theory a 1-ton pickup truck, but you can put 7,050 pounds of total payload in the F350. Even more insane, of course, is that if you get the F450, you can tow 31,200 pounds. This is where the F350 and the F450 start differentiating themselves a little bit, and that's why I'm including them both in this particular video. The difference is that Ford splits the models, so if you want maximum towing, you have to get the F450, and that will tow that 31,200 pounds. Its payload, however, is a little bit lower. It drops down to 5,300 pounds in order to give you that maximum towing ability. Now the important thing to keep in mind here when comparing it to the Ram is that there is a version of the Ram that beats this both in payload and towing at the same time, and on the Ford side you do have to choose a little bit between the F350 and the F450 when it comes to towing and payload. The front seats are large and comfortable in the F350. We are in the King Ranch model, which is not the top end trim, but it's pretty darn close to it. We have 2-way adjustable lumbar support, heated and cooled seats as well. The rear seats fold in a few different ways, so you can of course fold the back down. You can put a bag right on there like that if you wanted to, or we can fold the back of this seat up in its upright position, and then we can fold the seat bottom cushion up with this lever right here, and then we have access to a lockable storage compartment right under it. The dashboard in the F350 is entirely hard plastic, so we have hard plastic upper, hard plastic lower for the airbag cover, and a hard plastic cover for the glove compartment below that. Over here in the center of the dashboard, we do have a center channel speaker in our particular model, and we have a storage cubby right here. And inside this storage cubby is where you'll find the USB input. We have 2 USB inputs right there, one on top of each other. The SD card slot for the nav system and the auxiliary inputs for the system. It does use RCA jacks, and we do have a video input. On the right side of this compartment, we also have a 12-volt power port. As you can see, you can fit quite a number of smartphones right here inside this storage area. Now, my only complaint is that this dashboard is black, and once we coil everything up in there and close the lid, your phone can get quite toasty in the hot sun. Moving down from that, you can see that we have these large round air vents on either side of this infotainment system. Below the screen, we have a single slot optical disc player, and we have controls for that My4 Touch system. Below that, we have the controls for our dual zone climate control system. On the right, we have a 12-volt power outlet that opens to the side, and then on the left, we have the controls for our 4-wheel drive system. For high, for low, and then we pull out and push in to activate or deactivate the locking rear axle. Continuing down from there, we have the button for our exhaust brake right over here to enable and disable. We have another 12-volt power outlet. We have our integrated trailer brake controller that activates the brake on the trailer brake controller, and this adjusts the gain. We have auxiliary upfitter switches right here. These allow you to connect electrical items to the vehicle without splicing quite as much wiring in the car. You can then turn them on and off using these switches. So you can use them for exterior lights, for any electrical accessory that you can imagine. And then right over here on the right side, we have a 150 watt, 110 volt AC outlet. Over on the driver's side, we have a 6-dial instrument cluster, tachometer on the left, speedometer on the right. And then right here across the top, we have our turbo boost gauge. We have engine temperature, transmission temperature, and a fuel gauge. And then in the center of that, we have a multifunction trip computer. The multifunction display is controlled via a button array on the steering wheel, and this is not quite the same as you'll find in the F-150. It is a little bit older. So right now we have our fuel economy screen right there. We have trip A, trip B. We have some additional gauges. For instance, transmission oil temperature. We have our compass, And then of course we have a blank screen where we can have a little bit less distraction. We also have certain truck apps, so we can see our off-road position, steering angle, etc. We also have the ability to see how many miles we've accumulated on the trailer if we have one connected. We have certain vehicle settings and some additional information like the My Key or system status check. Without a doubt, the F350 is a big truck, but with this much power and this much torque under the hood, acceleration is actually pretty brisk. This vehicle weighs just around 3 tons, and it will still go from 0 to 60 in 7.6 seconds, which is mid-sized sedan kind of acceleration. Passing ability is, of course, excellent in the F350 thanks to all that horsepower under the hood. The downside for any of these heavy-duty vehicles, of course, is the suspension stiffness when the vehicle is not loaded. And of course, we don't have a very loaded vehicle right now, so when we're on these rough roads out here, you can feel just about every bump out on the road. Handling obviously is not the forte of a large pickup truck either, and you will get much better handling in your average half-ton pickup truck like an F-150. The F-150 is particularly light, and this is particularly heavy. You can actually get your Super Duty up to 4 tons if you get that F-450. The extra weight really is noticeable out on the road because especially on gravel roads, we do have a traction problem at times, especially with these stock tires. I did have to engage 4-wheel drive mode or the rear differential lock to help me get up certain gravel roads near me. Fuel economy is just about as you'd expect in a vehicle this large and this heavy. I have been averaging around 14 miles per gallon or so. That's not terribly surprising because we do have a 6.7 liter engine under the hood, and of course we do have that really heavy curb weight. Braking scores in this vehicle are relatively good. Of course, this is a big heavy vehicle yet again, so it's not going to stop like a half-ton pickup truck, but fade resistance is relatively good, as you'd expect with a vehicle that has this kind of payload in mind. Obviously, the ride would improve if we put about 2,000 pounds in the bed, but as it is, the ride is fairly impressive for a vehicle with extremely high payload abilities. Keep in mind that in the vehicle that we're driving right here, that does not have the dualies, I could throw a mid-size body-on-frame SUV in a compactor, grab that big cube of steel that weighs about 5,000 pounds, pop it in the back, and this vehicle would actually carry it. When it comes to pricing, I will be talking 2016 numbers. If you're looking at a 2015 on dealer lots, you should get a slight discount off of what I'm talking about. The F250 starts at $32,385. The 350 starts at $33,280, which actually is not a very big bump over the 250. But if you want the diesel in the 350, that will set you back $41,760. The F450 is diesel only, and that's $53,060 for the 2016 model year. Now that pricing is quite in line with the rest of the competition, although it is a little bit higher than the Silverado or the Ram, depending on how you configure your truck. Now it's also important to keep in mind that there is really no corollary to the F350 over there with the General Motors pickup trucks. And the F350 with the diesel engine does produce about 100 foot-pounds of torque more than we find in the Silverado, and the towing is also a little bit higher. Now the interesting thing about the Ram 2500 is that optionally you can get a rear air suspension in basically every model of the Ram 2500. Although not the same system, Ram does something very similar in their 3500 pickup truck. They combine an airbag setup with the leaf springs that we get in the regular 3500. Now that doesn't give you the same kind of ride advantage that we get in the 2500, but it does mean the ride is a little bit more civilized than this F350. We don't get any of those fancy suspension setups over there in the Silverado 2500 or Silverado 3500, but we do get an interior that feels a little bit fresher than the Super Duty we're taking a look at here. I also like the fact that we get a slightly larger LCD instrument cluster over there in the Silverado. It is very nicely done. I think the seats are a hair more comfortable in this generation of the Silverado. We'll see what Ford does for the 2017. Of course, if you want the most civilized ride, that would be the Ram 2500 and Ram 3500 with the air suspension options. Now the rest of the Ram experience becomes a little bit less civilized because that inline-6 Cummins turbo diesel engine is perhaps deliberately loud. It really sounds like a big clattery diesel like I personally like. This V8 engine that we get here, it's a diesel engine still, but it's much, much quieter than we find in the Ram. Now, some people may find that attractive, some people may not. This is just about as quiet as we see in the Chevy Silverado as well. The difference is probably most noticeable when you're using the diesel exhaust brake. The Ram's is much louder, this is much more civilized. Which vehicle is right for you really depends on your realistic use case scenario. If you're actually going to be towing 30,000 pounds, then of course the Ford and the Ram are the only plenty options for you. If you're realistically only going to be towing about 15 to 20,000 pounds, maybe you have a 10,000 pound fifth wheel or something along those lines, then honestly any of the 3 pickup trucks will do very well. Although it may sound ridiculous, there are certain bragging rights associated with the F450. When you pull up at the stoplight with your big trailer connected to it, everybody knows that you paid extra for the maximum towing capability. And over there on the Ram side, the Ram 3500, whether you're getting the base gasoline engine or the top-end diesel engine, there isn't that same kind of exterior differentiation. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the Ford Super Duty. Be sure and check out the related videos on this channel. Click that subscribe button at the bottom of your screen, and I'll see you next week.